The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue over the backyard, bathing everything in a warm, peaceful light. Birds chirped lazily in the distance, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass through the air. The little girl, no more than 6, ran barefoot across the lawn, her laughter echoing like music. She wore a pink cotton dress that fluttered as she chased after floating bubbles her mother blew from the porch. Her tiny hands reached up, trying to catch them, squealing with delight every time one popped near her nose. The mother sat comfortably on the wooden steps, sipping iced tea and watching her daughter play with a smile only a parent could wear, one of complete, quiet joy. Everything in that moment felt perfect. The kind of ordinary, beautiful moment that often goes unnoticed until it's gone. For years, they'd dreamed of a quiet life like this. A safe home, a loving family, simple joys in the backyard. And in this fleeting instant, it all felt real, solid, steady, whole. The mother felt an overwhelming wave of love and peace wash over her as she watched her daughter twirl in the grass. It was the kind of moment she'd want to bottle up forever. Then her phone buzzed. It was just a quick notification. Probably something mundane. She looked down for a second, maybe 2 at most. Her finger hovered over the screen as she debated replying to a message from a friend. When she looked up again, the bubbles were still floating in the air, drifting lazily toward the sky. But the laughter had stopped. The yard was suddenly too quiet. Her eyes scanned the grass where her daughter had just been. Empty. The swing was moving slightly, back and forth in the wind. The garden gate was still shut. There was no scream, no sound of struggle. Just, gone. She stood up slowly, confusion tightening into fear. She called her daughter's name once, twice. Nothing. Her voice cracked on the 3rd try. The iced tea glass fell from her hand, shattering on the steps behind her. Her heart began to pound. In just seconds, her world had changed, and she didn't even know how. The police arrived within minutes, their flashing lights cutting through the quiet suburban street like a wound. Neighbors gathered on sidewalks, hushed voices mixing with the crackle of police radios. The mother stood at the edge of the lawn, arms wrapped tightly around herself, her eyes locked on the backyard as if staring hard enough would somehow bring her daughter back. An officer approached her gently, notepad in hand, his expression grave but calm. He asked questions, so many questions. When was the last time she saw her? What was she wearing? Could she have wandered off? The mother answered everything between trembling lips, her voice barely more than a whisper. Her hands shook as she pointed to the corner of the yard, to the swing, to the small break in the fence where she now noticed the latch looked slightly off. She was just here, she kept saying. Just here. Search dogs arrived as daylight began to fade. Officers combed through bushes, behind the shed, through every inch of the house and surrounding yards. They called the girl's name again and again, voices growing more strained with every hour. Helicopters scanned the nearby woods. Volunteers posted flyers on lampposts, shop windows, car windshields. Her face, her beautiful, innocent face, was suddenly everywhere, printed beneath the word, missing, in bold red letters. But days turned into weeks. Tips came in, some from people who thought they saw her at a gas station, or in another state, or on a security camera at a mall. Each time, hope rose in the mother's chest like a balloon, and each time, it popped painfully when the lead went nowhere. The father threw himself into work, barely speaking. He told reporters he believed she'd come home. But at night, the mother heard him crying quietly in the bathroom with the water running. The backyard changed too. The grass overgrew where she used to play. The swing never moved again, as if out of respect, or grief. The mother stopped blowing bubbles. She couldn't bear to look at them floating into an empty sky. And as the seasons changed, the colors of hope faded too, replaced by a dull gray ache. Her daughter was gone without a trace, and the world had already started moving on. But she hadn't. She never would. 12 years passed, and time had done its cruel work, softening the sharp edges of grief, but never removing the weight of it. The house was quieter now, filled with unspoken rules and silence that hung between the mother and father like fog. They still lived under the same roof, but their lives no longer moved together. They coexisted. Mornings were a quiet exchange of nods. Evenings were spent in separate rooms, absorbed in separate distractions. The air in the house carried the stale scent of things left unresolved. The daughter's room remained untouched. Dust had settled on her tiny bookshelf, on the stuffed animals lined neatly across the bed. The pink curtains were drawn shut most of the time, shielding the room from the changing seasons outside. Occasionally, the mother would step inside, sit on the edge of the bed, and run her fingers over the last drawing her daughter ever made, a crayon sketch of their family beneath a smiling sun. She'd trace her daughter's handwriting, faded but still there, like an echo. She tried therapy, group meetings, prayer. Some days she almost convinced herself she was healing. Other days, she couldn't get out of bed. Birthdays were the worst. She still bought a cake every year, lit candles, and whispered, "Happy birthday, baby," to an empty chair at the kitchen table. The father, by contrast, hardened. He didn't speak of her. He didn't enter her room. He worked long hours, came home late, and left early. He never missed a day of shaving. His routine became sacred, every morning, same time, same sequence. It was as if staying in motion was the only way he knew how to survive. Friends and family stopped asking how they were. Over time, their calls became less frequent, visits even rarer. People assumed they had either moved on or had chosen not to talk about it anymore. But grief like theirs never ended, it only changed form. It lived in the quiet moments. In the unspoken glances. In the photograph still framed in the hallway. In the way the mother's eyes lingered on little girls at the grocery store. In the father's long, vacant stares while shaving in the mirror. Outwardly, life moved forward. The seasons came and went. New neighbors arrived. The town grew and changed. But inside that house, time had stopped 12 years ago. And even though the world had long forgotten the missing girl from the backyard, her mother never did. She still held on to the feeling that one day, somehow, the truth would find its way home. It was the 12th anniversary of her daughter's disappearance, and the morning began like any other. The mother awoke early, not because she had slept well, but because she rarely slept through the night anymore. The date was etched into her bones, a quiet alarm clock that rang louder in her chest with each passing year. July 17th, the day that divided her life into before and after. She stood in the kitchen, staring blankly at the kettle as it boiled, the shrill whistle snapping her out of her daze. She poured the water into her mug, not remembering if she had added the tea bag. It didn't matter. The tea wasn't what she wanted. She needed routine, something to cling to. As she sat down at the kitchen table, the sunlight filtered through the window, casting long shadows across the wooden surface. Her eyes drifted to the photo frame that had never moved from its place beside the salt shaker, a picture of her daughter grinning, one front tooth missing, holding a balloon in one hand and her father's hand in the other. Tears welled up before she even realized they were coming. 12 years. She whispered it under her breath like a curse. 12 years and still no answers. No closure. No body. Just a vanishing. An open wound that never scabbed over. As she stirred the untouched tea, her gaze lingered on the back door. The same one her daughter had gone through that day. She got up and walked to it slowly, placing her hand on the doorknob, not to open it, but just to feel it. The metal was cold, indifferent. She sighed and turned away, moving instead toward the hallway. Her steps were automatic, guided by muscle memory and emotion rather than intention. She found herself standing in front of her daughter's bedroom door. She hadn't gone inside in months, but today, something drew her in. When she opened the door, the soft scent of lavender still lingered faintly, though dulled by time. Dust danced in the shafts of morning light pouring through the closed blinds. Her eyes landed on the small jewelry box on the dresser, one her daughter used to treasure. She wound it slowly, and the familiar tinkling melody began to play, fragile, haunting, incomplete. She sat on the bed, clutching a faded sweater her daughter once wore. Her mind drifted, eyes glazing over with memory. And that's when she felt it, something. A sensation she hadn't felt in years. Not a memory. Not grief. Something else. It was instinct, maybe. Or intuition. But it was strong. An unshakable tension settled in her chest like a storm cloud gathering weight. A whisper in her gut told her something wasn't right, again. Not about that day 12 years ago. But about now. About something in the present. She got up slowly, a little dizzy, her heart pounding more than usual. She glanced down the hall toward the bathroom. Her husband was in there, like always. Same time every morning. Shaving. Doors closed. Routine. Predictable. Mechanical. But for the first time, his routine didn't feel comforting. It felt off. She didn't know why, couldn't explain it, but something deep inside her was telling her to pay attention. And for the first time in years, she listened. She waited until he left for work, just like he always did, early, briefcase in hand, a quick nod instead of a goodbye. The sound of the car backing out of the driveway was her cue. She stood by the window until his taillights disappeared around the corner, her fingers nervously gripping the curtain. Her heart was already racing, even though she didn't know exactly what she was looking for. But the feeling that had taken root in her the night before was still there, louder, sharper. She walked down the hallway toward the bathroom. It was a space she rarely lingered in anymore. His space. He kept it obsessively neat, razors aligned, cologne bottles facing forward, drawers in perfect order. He'd always been that way, but in recent years, his need for control had taken on a strange, almost sterile quality. She opened the medicine cabinet, scanning the shelves without touching anything. Vitamins, antacids, shaving cream, nothing unusual. Her eyes landed on the shaving kit, the same black leather case he had used for years. It sat in the drawer like a quiet artifact, familiar and ordinary. But something about it felt different today. She picked it up, heavier than she remembered, and brought it to the sink. Unzipping it slowly, she found what she expected at first: a razor, spare blades, small scissors, and a comb. Everything was placed with care, like always. But as she turned the kit over in her hands, she noticed something odd, a slight bulge in the bottom lining, like the fabric had been stretched or tampered with. She pressed on it gently. It gave way. Her breath caught. There was a seam, subtle, almost invisible. She ran her finger along it and felt a small ridge, like a flap. With trembling hands, she dug her nail into the edge and pulled. The lining peeled back with a soft rip, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a folded piece of cloth. Her hands shook as she pulled it out and unwrapped it on the counter. And then she froze. There, nestled inside the cloth, was a small silver locket. Her daughter's locket. She knew it instantly. It had a tiny heart etched on the front, and the clasp was slightly bent, just as it had been when she'd fastened it around her daughter's neck the day before she vanished. It had never been recovered. Police said it was likely lost during the abduction. But here it was, in his shaving kit. Her mind swirled in disbelief. No, she thought, this couldn't be. She reached for the locket with shaking fingers and opened it. Inside was the photo she remembered, her daughter, age 5, grinning at the beach. And opposite it, a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it carefully. It was a child's drawing. Stick figures. A girl, a house, a man. And beneath it, scrawled in shaky crayon, "Daddy said don't tell." She staggered back a step, clutching the counter for balance. The room spun. Her heart pounded in her ears, louder than anything she'd ever heard. The air felt thin. This wasn't just a keepsake. This was evidence. This was a secret buried for 12 years. And her husband had hidden it. She sat on the cold tile floor of the bathroom, the locket and crumpled drawing still in her lap, unable to move. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps as her mind tried to make sense of what she was seeing. The locket alone would have shattered her. But the drawing, the words written in her daughter's handwriting, sent a jolt of something far deeper and darker through her. "Daddy said don't tell." The phrase echoed through her mind, over and over, like a slow, relentless drumbeat. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. She felt like she was slipping out of her own body, like she was watching herself from far away. She reached up and gripped the edge of the counter, pulling herself to her feet. Her reflection in the mirror looked ghost-like, pale and distant, as if the woman staring back at her was a stranger. 12 years. 12 years of believing a stranger had taken her daughter. 12 years of pain, fear, and guilt. All this time, her husband had shaved in this mirror, washed his face in this sink, tucked away this secret just inches beneath where she stood every morning. The betrayal was a weight crushing her chest, pressing on every nerve in her body. She clutched the locket to her chest, eyes squeezed shut. For a brief, flickering moment, she remembered her daughter's laugh, her small arms wrapping around her waist, the smell of shampoo in her hair. Then that image was pushed out by the drawing again, so innocent, so terrifying. She stumbled into the hallway, heart pounding. The house was silent, but now it felt different. Every photo on the wall, every corner of every room felt suddenly tainted, touched by something she hadn't seen until now. It wasn't just grief that had haunted this house for 12 years, it was a lie. A massive, careful, deliberate lie. She collapsed onto the couch in the living room, struggling to breathe. How much did he hide? How long had he known? Had he done it himself? Or helped someone else? Her mind raced with 1,000 horrible possibilities, each one more unbearable than the last. The father she thought she knew, the man who held her as they cried together, who answered questions from police and promised to stay strong, that man had also hidden the one piece of truth that might have brought their daughter home. Unless he never intended her to come home. The thought hit her like a wave of ice. She doubled over, choking on the sob that ripped from her throat. She had to know the rest. She had to find out what else he was hiding, no matter how terrifying it was. No more silence. No more waiting. She reached for her phone, her fingers numb. She didn't know whether to call the police, her sister, or him. Her thumb hovered over the screen, frozen in panic and indecision. She looked down again at the words on the crayon drawing, "Daddy said don't tell." But now, someone had to. And she would. She paced the living room floor, the locket and drawing clenched tightly in her fist. Her mind was racing, but her thoughts felt stuck, trapped between disbelief and rage. Every second that passed made the weight of what she had discovered sink deeper. 12 years of grief, of wondering, of guilt, and now this, the most unthinkable answer hiding in a drawer just feet away from where she'd slept beside him all these years. She wanted to scream, to break something, to run. But she couldn't afford to fall apart, not now. Not when she might finally be on the edge of the truth. She sat down at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the wood grain, her heart still pounding like a drum in her chest. The question that burned louder than any other was, why? Why would he keep the locket? Why hide the drawing? Had he taken her, hurt her, or had he been hiding someone else's crime, protecting someone? A friend, a family member? Had she lived all these years beside a monster? Or beside a coward? She grabbed a notepad from the drawer and began scribbling questions, leads, fragments of memory. Times he came home late. The weird mood swings. The night he came in with a torn sleeve and said it was from fixing the shed. The time she found dirt on his shoes even though he said he'd worked in the office all day. She'd ignored all of it. Back then, it hadn't meant anything. But now everything felt like a possible clue. Her eyes moved to the clock. He would be home in less than 2 hours. Her stomach twisted. She needed help. Someone who wouldn't dismiss her. The police, maybe. But after 12 years, would they believe her? What if they thought she planted the locket to get attention? Or worse, what if going to them tipped him off before she had more proof? She picked up her phone and, with trembling hands, called her sister. When the familiar voice answered, she couldn't speak at first. Just silence and a shaky breath. "It's her," she finally whispered. I found something of hers. In his things." The silence on the other end was sharp. "What are you talking about?" her sister asked, confused but already worried. "I found Lily's locket. In his shaving kit. And a drawing. A drawing she made. She said, she wrote that Daddy told her not to tell." The gasp on the other end was immediate. "You're sure? I would know it anywhere." "It's hers." The sister's voice hardened. "You can't be alone when he gets home. I'm coming over. Right now. I don't know what to do." "Yes, you do," her sister said. "You already started. You found the truth. Now you have to finish it." She hung up, her hands still shaking, but steadier than before. There was no turning back now. She gathered the locket and drawing, wrapped them carefully in a clean dish towel, and placed them in a shoebox. Then she moved to the hallway closet and pulled out the old camcorder, the one he never touched. She set it on the mantel, hidden but pointed at the front door. If he came home and tried to lie again, she would have it on tape. This time, she would be ready. The front door creaked open just after 6. She heard the usual sound of his keys landing in the dish by the door, the soft shuffle of his shoes being placed neatly on the mat. He moved through the house with the same quiet routine he'd followed for years, calm, calculated, almost mechanical. But this time, she heard it all differently. Every sound felt deliberate, every step like a warning. She stood in the kitchen, the shoebox with the locket and drawing resting behind her on the counter, out of sight. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but her face remained composed. She'd practiced this moment in her head for the past hour. When he walked in and saw her standing there, She saw the flicker in his eyes, curiosity, maybe suspicion. He offered a slight smile, as he always did. "You're up early for dinner," he said, loosening his tie. "Everything okay?" She didn't answer right away. She turned slowly to face him, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk," she said quietly. He paused, mid-step. "Sure," he said. "What's going on?" She motioned to the kitchen table. "Sit." He hesitated but obeyed, lowering himself into the chair across from her. She remained standing. "I found something today," she began, watching his face closely. "Something I never expected. Something that shouldn't have existed." A beat of silence. He tilted his head slightly. "What do you mean?" She pulled the box out and placed it gently on the table. Her hands didn't tremble this time. She opened it slowly, revealing the locket and the drawing. He froze. "I found it in your shaving kit," she said. Her voice was low, steady. 12 years, and this was there. Hidden. Why? His expression shifted, just slightly. A flicker of something. Fear. Anger. Calculation. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice quiet. "You tell me," she snapped. "Why did you keep it? Why would our daughter's locket, the one she was wearing the day she disappeared, be in your things?" He said nothing. The silence was deafening. Then he stood up slowly, hands raised, palms out. "It's not what you think." Her breath caught. "Then what is it?" "I found it," he said quickly. "Years ago. I didn't want to get your hopes up. I didn't know what it meant. Maybe someone planted it. You found it and hid it from me. I didn't know how to tell you," he insisted. "You were fragile. I didn't want to make it worse. You let me rot for 12 years, thinking she was gone forever. You sat next to me while I cried for her, and all this time, you were keeping this. I was protecting you," he said, but his voice was trembling now. She stepped forward. "No, you were protecting yourself. There's more, isn't there?" Before he could answer, headlights swept across the window, her sister's car pulling into the driveway. He noticed. His eyes flicked to the front door. His mouth opened slightly. "You called someone?" he asked, now panicked. "I had to," she said. "I'm done living in the dark." The doorbell rang. She didn't move. She kept her eyes on him. He didn't speak again. Not a denial. Not a confession. Just that same, chilling silence that now meant everything. And in that silence, something shattered between them, something that had been holding this lie together for over a decade. It was over. Or maybe, it was just beginning.